Moving on to part 3, which is preparing Booleans for different use cases. So this is the last section that we're going to be covering in this course. And we're going to be taking you through how to prepare Booleans for situations such as industry and market trend spotting, consumer and audience insights, brand and campaign tracking, and also for crisis monitoring. So just as a recap for this section, what you have learned so far in the course is, the different components that make up a Boolean, what the research process is, how to create and write your Booleans, and also how to optimize your Booleans. So based on our experience, we can see that social listening tools are typically used to track mentions for 4 topic segments. So the first one is, as I said, industry and market trend spotting. And then we have consumer and audience insights, tracking mentions for brands or marketing campaigns, and also for crisis monitoring. So a few examples within these topics include things like looking for emerging trends or looking for new opportunity areas, especially if you might be trying to come up with a new product line for your brand. If you want to get a bit more insights and understanding into your consumers and potential target audiences, this can include things like consumer preferences or consumer purchase habits. For brand and campaign tracking, this involves tracking online brand mentions of your own brand or of your competitor brands as well. And it also includes social media campaign tracking online. Lastly, we have crisis monitoring. So this ranges on a different level and different areas of crisis for whatever brand you're tracking right now. But examples of this include negative online reviews, product recalls, or even company scandals involving maybe a CEO or something to do with finance matters for the company. So as a summary as well, we've gone through a few different types of keywords. So Kay has taken you through an exercise involving coming up with a Boolean for Valentine's Day. And I showed you how to gather keywords for COVID-19 related content. So we've also summarized the 3 primary keyword types that you may want to include in your Booleans. So the first one is your brand keywords. So these are things like your brand name, your products or services, your social media campaign names or hashtags, or even key opinion leaders or influencers. So a few examples would be things like Adidas for your brand name, Ultra Boost shoes for your product, maybe a campaign hashtag such as hashtag Adidas 2021 campaign, and maybe influencers like Justin Bieber, for example. Next, we have your situational keywords over here. So this includes things that are more event specific. So there are things like social movements, such as sustainability or human rights. We also have keywords for industry trends. So it could be fashion trends or even snacking trends. We have incidents. So this is where your crisis keywords may come in. So it could be a company scandal, a factory fire, etc. Situational keywords also include things under location. So this can be as specific to your own incident. So whether it's a street name or the name of a local mall in your area, this would all be bucketed under the location section. Finally, we have timing. So this could be Christmas, it could be breakfast time or lunchtime, etc., but it's more time specific keyword. Finally, the last primary keyword type we're going to be covering today is behavioral. So this refers to action keywords like I want to buy, or I downloaded, or I ate. And it also refers to the consumer journey. So whether the person's consumer journey is purchasing a product or downloading a report, etc., this would fall under this section. We also have target consumer related keywords. So for example, we're going to be going into a bit more detail later, but if you're tracking mentions of parents online, you can't really specify, parent related keywords, but what you can come up with will be things like my child, my son, my baby, and that would also imply that you're looking for mentions from parents themselves. So now that you know what the main keyword types are and what the top topic segments are, we've just put together a little guide for you to follow when coming up with your own Booleans for these particular situations. So for both industry and market trend spotting, as well as consumer and audience insights, because you're not really tracking a specific brand, you're looking at something quite broad. So whether it's fashion or sustainability, etc., you want to keep your keywords pretty broad. So in this situation, for both of these topics, you would only want to include situational or behavioral keywords. When tracking brands or campaign, we would recommend strictly focusing on brand-related keywords to make sure that you're on top of all your company-related terms. in the event of a crisis, and if you want to start tracking mentions on social listening tools, we do recommend combining brand keywords with situational keywords in that instance. So the first case study we're going to be looking at is one for industry and market trend spotting. And we're going to continue on with the example of Sonia, who is our social analyst at Adidas. So let's say Adidas is working on a new clothing line that is going to be sustainable and eco-friendly. So they've asked Sonia to learn about what sustainable clothing trends are appearing on social media sites. So some of the best practices that we have put together includes number one, to research the top hashtags related to your topic of interest. So this is also going to be most likely used on social media platforms when sharing content related to your topic. So as an example, in this first part of the Boolean here, we've compiled the top hashtags related to sustainability as well as fashion. So we have things like hashtag sustainable fashion or hashtag eco fashion. So once you do your research, you'll find that these are the most commonly used hashtags and terms in Instagram posts or Twitter posts when people want to share content related to this topic. It's also important to include basic terms related to your topic of interest in order to broaden your Boolean. So it's great as a start that you have all these hashtags related to your topic of interest. But what if some people don't use these hashtags in their conversations? So in order to cover your base, you should also include basic terms such as sustainable or eco-friendly or upcycled, and pair that up with the next relevant topic, which is fashion. So if you look at this Boolean here in the second part, we have said that a post has to contain either the word sustainable or eco-friendly or upcycled, and it has to contain the word fashion or clothing or apparel in order to be captured by this Boolean. So in the next case study, we're going to be looking at how to get consumer and audience insights related Booleans. So let's say Adidas is looking to launch an infant wear collection for babies or toddlers. So before developing any product prototypes, Adidas wants to learn about what parents online are discussing in relation to infant wear. So the first step, as mentioned before, is to research terms that the audience segment in question may exclusively use in their online conversations. So as I mentioned before, if I'm a parent on social media, I may use terms like my child or my baby or my newborn. And I also might use audience specific hashtags. So if you do research, you might find things coming up like hashtag mom life over here, or even the other variation of the spelling like this. So it's not 100% guarantee, but it's quite safe to say that when you put together these keywords, you're not going to be tracking mentions from, maybe a teenager or a child online. It's most likely going to be a parent. So the second step is to also combine these terms with basic keywords relating to your topic of interest. So in this case, if Sonia is looking for insights around clothing, she may want to pair this Boolean up with the word and, infant wear or infant space wear or clothing or clothes. So this means that a post has to mention any of these keywords over here and at least one of these keywords over here. So it's really important to put the second part in, because if you just keep it as this over here, you may pull in mentions around, food or baby care or health products related for parents and children rather than actual clothing. So next up is brand and campaign tracking. So Adidas is looking to launch a summer campaign on social media and will also be working with a few influencers to broaden the awareness of this campaign. So Adidas wants to track all campaign related mentions to measure the success of this campaign on social media. So the first step, which is really important, is to include all campaign related keywords, including any basic terms or hashtags. So as an example, this is not a real campaign, I've just made it up for this example, but if they're launching a summer campaign, they may have a hashtag such as, hashtag Adidas Summer Campaign 2021. And they may use specific hashtags when collaborating with influencers, which is also really important to put in your Boolean. So if they're using influencer related hashtags, it may be things such as hashtag Adidas ambassador or hashtag influencer Adidas. So this helps you make sure that you're not only pulling in your brand mentions, but also the influencers in question. And to also be a bit more careful and cautious, if people may not necessarily include the campaign hashtags in their Booleans, it's also good to include your basic terms as well. So in the second part of this Boolean here, what I've done is I've added the words Adidas or hashtag Adidas or at Adidas and summer campaign or summer 2021. So what this is telling the system is any post that mentions one of these keywords and one of these two keywords can be captured by this Boolean. And it would also be related to the campaign that they're tracking. So in the last case study, let's say a fire has just broken out at an Adidas factory and it's a suspected case of arson. So Adidas wants to track all mentions relating to this incident, whether it's on news sites, social media platforms, or other websites. So the most important thing to do now is to research how the situation is being discussed online. This is because mentions around the incident may be described in different ways depending on the post author, whether it's a publication or a social media platform. And it's also important to include any of these keyword variations from your research into your Boolean to make sure that you don't miss out on anything important. So as an example, what I've done in the first part of this Boolean here is to add my brand keywords. So I have the mentions of Adidas or hashtag Adidas or at Adidas SG. And I've connected this with my situational keywords over here highlighted in yellow. So a post has to mention any of these brand terms, as well as the word either factory or building, and also any variation of the word fire. So let's say hypothetically in my research, I saw that people were saying that there was an explosion, there were flames, there was an arson attack, or it was burning. What I have done now is I have brought in my Boolean, but still kept it relevant to the actual crisis in question. So I will be able to capture any mention that talks about, a factory fire or a burnt building, for example. So as mentioned, these are the 4 main areas that we have found our clients and ourselves tracking mentions for on social listening tools. So we have a quiz coming up, which will wrap up this session, and I'll go through the questions now. So question 1, which keyword type should not be included in a Boolean for market trend spotting? Question 2 is a true or false question. So brand keywords should be included when in tracking a crisis situation. And the third question is, which category do keywords about sustainability or environmental protection belong to? So I'll give you guys about 2 to 3 minutes to answer this. Okay, I can see there's a couple more of you left to answer the question. We'll have about a few more seconds left. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now and we'll run through the questions. So for question 1, which keyword type should not be included in a Boolean for market trend spotting? I can see that most of you got it correct at about 70%. That's great. So the correct answer is brand. So brand keywords should not be included in a Boolean for market trend spotting, because if you do that, you're going to be limiting yourself to tracking mentions from that one brand. So if we look at the example with Adidas, if they want to track mentions about sustainability in fashion, but they include keywords around maybe Nike or Puma, for example, they will only see mentions around sustainability in relation to these 2 brands, rather than the wider network of mentions that they could be looking at. So for question 2, which is a true or false question, brand keywords should be included when tracking a crisis situation. So the answer for this is true, and it was a bit of a split. So you always should include brand keywords in your crisis Booleans, because you want to make sure that your mentions are related to your brand. So with the Adidas factory fire one as an example, if we didn't add brand keywords in there, we may have pulled in mentions from another building fire that happened somewhere in Singapore, or another one that happened maybe somewhere else in Australia that is not relevant to the Adidas factory fire. So for the last question, which category do keywords about sustainability or environmental protection belong to? So the correct answer for this is situational. So this refers to social movements, and this is where we bucketed it into the situational category. And that is a wrap up of our course today. But before we end off this session, I just wanted to summarize a few of the learnings that we have from this course today. So you followed Sonia from her journey, not knowing anything about Booleans, and now she's, pretty much an expert at it. So we're going to be recapping a few of the things that she has learned. So Sonia, in the beginning of the session, learned that she needs to prepare Booleans using a combination of keywords, operators, as well as the location. She also learned from Kay that you can use tools such as keyword suggestion sites, as well as online translation tools in order to get keyword ideas. If she wants to troubleshoot any errors in her Boolean, she can download text editor softwares such as Sublime Text, where you can easily edit your queries and find out what's actually wrong with them if there's an error in the query. When it comes to optimizing Booleans, there are two main ways which are to either apply exclusions using the not operator or to tighten the Boolean with the and operator instead. She also learned the three main types of keywords that you can use for Booleans, which are brand, situational, and behavioral keywords. So do you guys have any questions for us today before we wrap up this session? I hope you guys, found this session easy to follow, not too overwhelming. We've kept the slides very digestible for you guys, and we will also be uploading the course syllabus, which is a very long and detailed document for you guys to refer to for the assignment and for future references as well.
Yeah, so don't worry if you forgot anything that we have covered today. Everything will be up on the website for you to access.
Yep. Okay, so I think we have one question.
So there's a question, is Boolean definition standard across platforms or specific to 2020? So the ones that we took you through today are the ones used in 2020. But there are certain differences that can be visible in other social listening tools. So for example, the not operator, in some tools they use and not, and it's not just not. It's a bit confusing, but like for other tools, the operator usage may be a bit different. So in our case, in 2020, the not operator, we just have the word not, but in other tools, you may use and not or other variations. So, but the basic operators that we took you through, which are and, or,
not,
and not, and not, those are the basic ones. So most social listening tools use that. You can use that in most social listening tools. So that will be really be helpful for you to learn. So those are the basic building blocks. There may be a bit difference, but it won't really be that much of a difference. Yeah. Thanks for that question. Okay, another question. Do you filter bots? For example, Twitter bots, tweets, or posts. So there are ways to filter bots using Booleans, but it's not 100%. So one way that you can filter those out using Booleans is maybe using certain hashtags that they use, or using certain keywords that they use in their caption. So you really need to read through your data on what those are. But if you were to filter them out using their account handle or their Twitter handle, that might be a bit tricky because every day there are like millions of bots being created on the internet. So, and their handles are really their handles really differ in terms of how they are configured. So the best bet that you can do is to exclude them using maybe certain terms that they may use similarly, but you will need to like read through the data set to be able to identify those.
So another question was, how to filter those which are selling something. So I think when it comes to selling conversations, you would find mentions coming from Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Like people are very relentless when it comes to putting up selling posts on social media. So whatever topic you're tracking. So let's say we're looking at, maybe selling foundation or makeup. So it's important, as Kay mentioned, to do the research into those conversations first. So your Boolean can start off with the brand mention. So let's say we're looking at Fenty Beauty. We can use mentions like, we can use keywords such as Fenty Beauty or hashtag Fenty Beauty or at Fenty, for example. So once we go into Twitter, for example, or Instagram, and we see what kind of mentions are coming in, we probably will come across selling conversations. So there's no, specific or exhaustive list of selling keywords. It really boils down to the research that you're putting in and you adding those particular keywords as exclusions. So one post could say on sale $50. Another post could say promotional price $25. So it really depends on what you're tracking and also in which language.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for mentions in Malaysia, which might be in Bahasa, you will also have to add those local language keywords in as your exclusion for the selling keywords.
Yeah, so it really depends on the data set that you're looking at. So in the example that I showed earlier, you can start with basic terms such as online selling or online shopping or free discount or free shipping or free delivery. But then you would still need to research. Like if you're looking at Thai posts, for example, or data from Thai. So in Thai, the term used for online selling may be different than those, so you will really need to research those. So it as Natasha said, like there is not like a list that you can find somewhere or search for online that gives you an exhaustive list of selling related keywords. So you will need to build onto that. So that's why I said that optimization, it's not a one-time thing. You need to frequently do it. And the frequency depends on the data set, on how much irrelevant data you have in your data. So it can be weekly, it can be monthly, it can be quarterly, but you won't get that exclusion list right at the first time, but you can continue adding onto it so that you can weed out more and more irrelevant mentions and improve the quality of your data set. Okay, another question. How can we filter those who make multiple comments? So it really depends on what number one, what platform you're tracking. So for Twitter, for example, it's easy to filter those out because you can just exclude those pesky Twitter handles. So you can list down those Twitter handles that make multiple comments, and you can um, add them as a not part in your Boolean, and you won't get their mentions anymore. But in other platforms, or for example, you don't really want to do that, like you don't want to not capture mentions from that person, but you just want to not collect or not get their multiple comments. Maybe you can identify a phrase in their post. So um, maybe it's a person like maybe you have an online contest and then there's this person who keeps tweeting the same entry over and over again. So maybe you don't want to capture that anymore. Maybe you can identify a phrase in their post which you can add in your not part. So it really depends on your data set. Like there's not one single answer that can solve it. So it really depends. Like you can just identify a phrase that they mention most often and exclude that, or in other cases where you really don't need to capture mentions from that particular account, you can also exclude that account from getting captured.
So someone else also has a question. I think this is more related to the introduction to social analytics. So the question was, sometimes I see results in the word cloud that are really large. So I'm guessing they're words that are in blue. So things like and, for, or, these kinds of words which are not actually relevant to the word cloud that you're looking at, but they are appearing in it. So how can you remove this result? So I believe there's an edit button on the word cloud section, which is I think in the shape of a pencil. So once you click on that, you'll be able to click X to delete any irrelevant word that you want. So you will still have the mention in 2020's platform, but you just won't see those words that you don't want to see in the word cloud.
Yeah, so the question is really not related to the Boolean. No matter what Boolean you pull, it's still possible that you get those conjunction words or pronouns or those common words in your word cloud. But in 2020, there's a way to edit the word cloud with the pen icon there, as Natasha has told you.
Does anyone have any other questions? Okay. All right. So now that you have finished the 201 Boolean Mastery course, you will have an assignment that we'll share a bit more info about in the next slide. But once you have completed this assignment and received your certification, you will be proceeding on to 301, Data Analysis and Insights Generation. And I think that's going to be in about 3 weeks. So that's really exciting. So just a few final notes before we wrap up. The course syllabus and course slides will be available on our course page on academy.circlesocial.com from tomorrow. And we'll just send out a reminder email to let you guys know when it's ready. There is an assignment that is due in exactly 2 weeks, so 2 Mondays from now at 23:59 hours Singapore time, which is GMT +8. So you can find all the information about the course assignment, and that will be up on our website as well. We also have 15-minute consultations that are available over the next week or so. You can book a 15-minute time slot with me and Kay, and that is between 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. There is a link over here, which we'll also share with you in our summary email as well. Okay, so thank you guys so much for joining us today. As I mentioned, we really hope you enjoyed the session and found it insightful. If you guys do have any questions, feel free to email us at academy@circlesocial.com or also book a consultation session, and we're happy to go over a few points with you there as well. Okay, so have a nice afternoon, and we'll speak to you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.